Here's the song Hi'ilave. Okay, Hi'ilave, one of the all-time great songs interpreted in this tradition of slack key. This based on the version that was recorded by Sonny Chillingworth. And so many interesting things happening in this piece. And this is definitely beyond the beginning level of guitar playing, but I wanted to give you some things to strive for in this lesson, and you can really take your time learning. Now keep in mind with anything that we've talked about, you can only, you can learn a whole song, or you might just pick up a few ideas. And that's really all that I'm hoping that with an arrangement like this, there's a ton of information. I wrote out, I interpret how he sang it and I arranged it for solo guitar, but you could just do accompaniment. And you could learn the introduction and the feel of the song, and really that gives you the most important quality and aspect of it, is just getting that feel and the groove of the song. I did it a pretty bright tempo. You could play it a lot slower. That tempo's great. If you've listened to Gabby, he did really slow versions of it, and he did some that were really fast. With his 12 string. That sort of thing. And this is a song that's wide open for all the techniques that we've talked about to put in variations. And listening to many versions of it is great because you might pick up a few ideas. There's a part in the Pa'ani that Sonny played that's right out of what Gabby played in his introduction. Although Gabby was in a different tuning, it's this line. And that happens at measure 40 and 39 and 40. Listen to Gabby's version from the Pure Gabby album. You'll hear him play that right off the bat in the different tuning, that C, G, E, G, B, E tuning. Great thing about that tuning, let me just show you for a sec. I just had to change that string up, the fourth string up to an E. The high string, it's a major seventh chord. Any tuning with a major seventh in it we call a wahine tuning. This note needs to move up a fret. Talk about an easy C chord, right? You just have to use that finger. And all that stuff I was doing before, I can just use one finger. There's that phrase. Different fingering to make it work in this tuning. But keep that in mind, that you can play the same song in different tunings and get the basic feel. Every tuning has something unique about it. So there's things that you can do in this tuning that you couldn't do in the drop C. So I'll go back to drop C. And I'll just talk briefly about some of the different techniques that are used. We won't go through all the details of the whole song, but I want you to listen very closely to the recording, my performance of it, but particularly Sonny's performance, and try to pick it up. Hear how he phrased things, hear how the rhythm works. I think it's the best way to learn a tradition, is really study from all the great players who played before. He starts out by doing this 3-finger roll that I mentioned before. Thumb, index, and middle. Repeated over and over again. But you play a bass note, and then you do this. We looked at these shapes. This one starts at the 10th fret of the 3rd and the 2nd string. Works its way down. Then measure 5. Chromatic note. First finger, then it goes down, like the open and close position, but in the inside 2 strings. So all of that is a big introduction over a G chord. You just did a big strum over different patterns of G. Then finally ends on a C chord. Something you hear quite often, that sort of motion. And then we get into, this is the main thing I want you to study about the piece, is getting into this original introduction, and he uses it again and again between verses. Before, usually the first time he does a pa'ani or a solo, he plays this line again, then he does some variations on it. So this line is going from C to G7 back, and we're just basically vamping back and forth between G and C7. And I'm using my 2nd finger to slide up. Now this is the great thing. You hammer on your 1st finger while you slide back with your 2nd. Mainly you're hearing, but you're also hearing a little bit of that. This note is still sustaining from when it slides up. Then he does this. A real quick little trill. Hammer on, pull off, hammer on. 0, 1, 0, 1 on high string. You can simplify this by just doing 1. Just do 1, keep it easy. That's tricky, right? A lot of these things, if they sound too hard, there's another way to do them. So, or, that's really cool, right? Now we do a triplet. If you go back, I mentioned to learn the song Punahele in taro patch tuning. it uses triplets all over the place. That's something that we're using here. You'll use them again and again. So go to that, it's a G wahine tuning, and take a look at punahele. So I'll play the intro slowly. G7. Once again at G7. Another triplet. Fourth string open, second, third. 3 notes with 1 note with your right hand. So you do thumb, index, thumb, hammer on, index, then. Something to keep in mind, sometimes you see the 0, 2, 0 hammer on and pull off many times in this song on the 3rd string. Sometimes it's a triplet, fast. Other times it's a little more smooth out as a 16th, 1D and a 2. So this measure 12, it's the 16th notes. Again, 16th. When you get to measure 14, there's a little delay. It goes 1 and 2 and 3. A lot of those little syncopations and delays is what makes the music really have a lot of spice to it and spark. So instead of like that, this last note, the open 3rd string, comes late. Again here. Again here. Here's the melody. So I do a hammer on from the open string all the way to the 5th fret. My 2nd finger, so the 1st finger is free to grab the bass note. No bar needed here. Then pinky plays, open, then you jump back down. G in the bass. If you're just doing accompaniment, it'd be C, F, C, C, G7, C. 2 vamps, G7, C, G7, C. Again. C, F, C, C, G7, C. Vamp. Remember that vamp? It's like your 2nd finger is glued to the string, just moving up 1 fret, whether the 3rd finger's there or not, to G7 in the back. Now something that Sonny does is that he plays, when it goes back in the progression to the C, F, C, then C. Oftentimes, right here, people usually play a C still. He plays a G for that full measure. Another thing he does is he doesn't play the F. Here, he actually plays a G there. But because it's very commonly played as an F there, I wrote it in the arrangement as an F. Just so you keep that in mind. If you hear the recording, it goes do do. He actually plays a G7 there. Just keep that in mind and use your ear. This is a really good thing to do to learn ear training. One of the best ways to learn. Listen to lots of recordings and see if you can identify what the chords are. Listen to the bass notes. If you can tune into that low pitch, it's going to help you to find out where your notes are. See if you can start writing out some chord charts and memorize songs just by learning what the chord progressions are using your ear. The best way to learn. You'll learn a lot faster if you can develop your ear. So then the vamp happens, and there's this little brush. So here's the end of the melody, 1st verse. Same thing as before. Now he does this. He uses his index finger and does this little brush. That happens in measure 25. Second time I wrote out the melody, I use a smaller version of F. Same vamp. First pa'ani starts just like the introduction. Same thing. Then the second time, it starts out similar. It has this really great descending line, using open and close. So check out that, check out the rhythm, and notice that he actually doesn't play the bass when that happens. And I jumped ahead. This is measure 55, 56. You'll notice there are no bass notes in that measure, and that's fine sometimes. Leave out. The melody is doing something very interesting and different, so it doesn't need to have the accompaniment all the time. And it's something that you can do sometimes. We always try to keep the bass lines going, but there are times when they can drop out. A couple other ideas in the song. There's that line I mentioned that Gabby played. That happens at 39 and 40. Another thing that happens in the last pa'ani, measure 61, starts the same. Measure 60. Here we do octave slides. Then this line. Remember side slipping? A note below the fifth, then you play the open strings, a note below the third, back to C. Each time the melody comes back, it's similar. I'll play the last melody. Measure 74, a tag. Here you're doing that hammer-on slide. Slow down. Last time. You pause on this note, and then last line at tempo again. Slow down. Ending. And it ends on a nice C chord. That's Hi'ilave and in the drop C tuning.